for the minute. So here is my circuit diagram. Here is the ignition switch. Pretend this is the ignition switch on the Austin 7. It's obviously earth, positive earth, positive earth. Power comes into the ignition switch and then comes out. I think it's a blue wire. In my case, I rewired it all. When I turn the lights on in the ignition switch, it will energize this connection down to the dip switch. Dip switch is obviously earth, positive earth. The dip switch, let's say, is normally closed on the main beam. I mean, it could be normally closed on either when you switch the lights on, right? But let's say it's on the main beam. That connection then, from all the way from the ignition switch when you turn the lights on, will now make that switch, that end of the switch in the dip switch, live. And I'm going to connect that to connector 85 on the relay. 85 or 86 are interchangeable as far as I know, but just for the sake of consistency, I'm always going to make 86 my earth and positive earth, right? So 86 will be earthed. 85 is now live because we've just switched the headlights on. As soon as I energize 85, because 86 is earthed, it will energize the circuit in the relay, and 30 and 87 are energized, right? I'm going to run a heavy gauge power cable from the battery, or another power source, has to be heavy gauge, to terminal 30. Convention is always terminal 30 is the live terminal, right? So power to terminal 30, then it closes when I've energized 85 and 86, and then that feeds power 87 to the main beam wire and my sealed beam unit in my headlights, right? I'm going to take a connection across that headlight in the left hand side to my same connection on the sealed beam unit on my right hand headlight, and that will energize both headlights when the dip switch is in that position. Right now, the headlights are still on. I now press the dip switch with my foot and energize the second contact on the dip switch. So it de-energizes that one, energizes this one, down to the second relay, that energizes terminal 85. Again, 86 is earth, positive earth. Energizes across the power 85, and then power, a heavy gauge wire feeds power to 30. Always 30 is the power feed. And then when you've energized between 85 and 86, it closes the electromagnet and makes a circuit between 30 and 87. 87 will feed up to, in the second relay, will feed up to the high beam wire in my sealed beam unit and turn on the high beams, right? And again, I'm connecting across the high beam on that sealed beam unit to the high beam connector on that side of the car. And just to show you the diagram on the relay, I think this is a 20 amp or 30 amp relay, I can't remember, but 6 volt, ordered it in eBay, and there you can see 85 and 86, and I said that interchangeable, but 30 is always a power feed. 87A is always live, so you don't use 87A, but you do use 87, so 30 and 87, and here's the actual connectors. Hopefully you can see that. 30 on the right hand side, 87 on the left hand side, 85 at the top, 86 at the bottom. 87A in a 5-pin relay like this is not being used because that's always normally closed, right? And that's it. Okay, let's have a go at this. I think I showed the circuit diagram before. This is a 6 volt relay for my headlights on my Austin 7. So how did I sort this out? I'll try and explain. Right, so 85 and 86 are marked terminals on the end here. So they're the black and white wires. The white wire I just took to ground, right? Easy. The black wire I'll show you I took to the dip switch. So the blue and the yellow wires are 87 and 30. 30 was my power. I took the 30 and connected it directly to the battery. The yellow is my 87, and the 87 is simply connected. I've got 2 relays, right? So one for the main beam and one for the you know, one for the brights and one for the dipped. So this is the yellow, the 87 wire going to the dipped, and this is the yellow wire, 87 wire going to the mains, right? And those wires simply follow through left and right to the two headlights, okay? Now the problem was I didn't have the dip switch wired up correctly before. Now I do have the dip switch wired up correctly. So the black switch wire comes from the Lucas switch and the dashboard. I'm just going to show you that. The Lucas switch on the dashboard is this switch, right? So when I turn my headlights on, plump, 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 I don't have the power on right now. I turn the headlights on, that activates that switch, right? So that's that switch wire, the black switch wire, goes hot, right? So that's connected directly to that ignition switch, the headlight switch. So that switch there is the common on the dip switch, right? These black connections are simply the other half of the light switch 86 on the relay, right? So I have a relay for dipped and a relay for main, right? So when that goes hot, one of these is on and one of them is off. And when you click the dip, it's the other way around. So I'm just going to connect and I'll show you. One of my dipped sealed beam units is gone. So I'll switch this on, right? On. Yeah. Okay. Is it on? It's on. Right. So battery's on. And you can see one of my, it's on dipped just now because one of my sealed beam units is missing the dip. But now if I click, there's both headlights on, right? Click again, you dipped, but remember one of my dip beams is gone, right? So I need a new sealed beam unit. But there, main, dipped, right? And that is working through the relays, these relays, right? So the relays are handling heavy current through the blue and yellow wire, and it's just the simple black switch wire from the relay, the black switch wire, if you follow it round, the black switch wire from the relay is going to one end of the dip switch, the other end of the dip switch, and the switch wire from the Lucas control unit and the dash, the Lucas you know, ignition switch thing, I know there's a name for it, that's the switch wire from there, right? So that gets hot and then it activates the relays, either main beam or brights. And that was how I solved the solution, right? So it's created the solution for the dipped headlights. So that seems to work with the relays now. It seems to be fairly, you know, reliable. So I'll, you know, clean up this wiring and get rid of this big huge junction box that I was using to experiment with.